This is Elder Yaakov coming from Yahweh Outreach Training Center, where we believe in keeping Father Yahweh laws and believing in his prophets. And what is prophet? The messenger of Father Yahweh that has brought us his word. And his word is from Father Yahweh through his prophets that we may understand. It says, only a fool will not believe the prophets of Father Yahweh. The fool believes in the prophets of Baal, but not in the prophets of Father Yahweh. We know that the Yahweh word says that was the king, that when it came to the prophet of Father Yahweh, he did not want to seek the advice from the prophet because he said this prophet never brings any good news. But the good news that the prophet brings from Father Yahweh is that Father Yahweh wants to give us his blessing keeping his covenant. And so Father Yahweh speaks unto the prophet Isaiah. And we begin in Isaiah chapter 55, and beginning at verse 1. And the prophet Isaiah speaks the mind of Father Yahweh. And he says in verse 1, O everyone who thirsts, come to the waters. You have no money. You who have no money, come, buy and eat. Yes, come, buy wine and milk without money. So we live in a world today, it is built on everything that our water, our food is built on money. But this bread that Father Yahweh says, you can buy without money. You don't need money to buy the word of Father Yahweh through the messenger, the prophets of Father Yahweh. So can I believe that I can buy this water and milk and wine without money? Well, this is what he says, that we can have the benefits of Father Yahweh without money. When the man Simeon, he tried to buy the Spirit with money. And he says, Peter and John says, you cannot buy this with money. Don't think you can buy this with money. You and your money will perish. So he's not talking about the spiritual milk. The physical milk and the physical wine and the physical water. It's talking about the water that Father Yahweh gives us freely. His word. The milk of his word. The blood of Yahshua. You don't need money for this. So he says, yes, come buy wine and milk without money and without price. Why would you spend money on what is not bread? Now, he's not talking about this physical bread that we go to our local grocery store and buy. He said, why do you spend your money on what is not bread? So the word says, Matthew 4:4 and Deuteronomy 8:3 says, man should not live by bread only, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of Father Yahweh. So this is what he's talking about. He's talking about buying this bread without money to live, because that's how we live. The physical food is not what we live by, because Proverbs chapter 4 tells us exactly what causes us to live and have our being. In chapter 4 and verse 20, he says, "My son, pay attention to my laws and incline your ears to my saying. Do not let them out of your sight. Keep them in the center of your heart, for they mean life to those who find them, and health to their whole bodies." And so Father Yahweh is saying, this bread that you buy from him is not is the bread of life. It is the bread that means life to you. It is the bread that means health to your whole body. The bread that we get from the local store that we have to buy for money, with money, it is not our help to our whole flesh, our whole body. It is not a help unto my mind. Father Yahweh said, his laws is the help that we shall keep, the bread, by living by his every word. And he says, so why would you spend money on what is not bread? Why would you labor for that which does not satisfy? Listen diligently to me and eat what is righteous. Eat what is righteousness. And that is the laws of Father Yahweh. So he's telling us what to eat. We don't have to spend money, because you can't find righteousness in your local grocery store, because you go on the shelf and you get a different kind of local, a different flavor or a different kind of bread. That is not righteousness. So he tells us to eat righteousness. We must eat righteousness. Why? It's because it is health to our whole body. It is health to our flesh. So look what he says. And let your soul delight itself in its abundance. So it is our soul should delight in Father Yahweh laws and his commandments and his judgment and statutes, so that we can have it in more abundance. Father Yahweh said in the word that Yahshua came to that we may have life and have it more abundantly. And so this is the abundant life, is that is of righteousness. That's the abundance life. It ain't the abundance of life of things that one may possess. That's not the abundance of life. But the abundance of life is righteousness. And it is the help to the mind, to the whole body. And so he says, incline your ear here and come to me. Hear and you will live. We talked about what that word here mean understanding. To understand how we live, how we be in good health. Father Yahweh says, and 2 John says, I wish that you prosper and be in great health as your soul prosper. So he wants not only our flesh to prosper, but our soul to prosper also. And so that's the way that we prosper, that we hear, understand, and so that we may live. I will establish establish an everlasting covenant with you. The sure mercies of David. And so Father Yahweh is letting us know that he's going to establish an everlasting covenant. What is that everlasting covenant? It is that covenant that he made with the children of Israel. But then he makes the renewed covenant that he's going to write them in our hearts and on our minds, so that it is being established as an everlasting covenant. He said, behold, I have given him as a witness to the people, a leader and commander to the people. Behold, you are called a nation you do not know, and nations who do not know you will run to you because of Yahweh your Father, the Holy One of Israel, for he has glorified you. Seek Yahweh while he may be found. Call upon him while he is near. Let the wicked forsake his own way, and the unrighteous man his own thoughts. Let him return to Father Yahweh, and he will have mercy upon him. Now that's on dependent of returning back to Father Yahweh, that we may have mercy. Because why? We have forsaken our own ways. Because our ways is the ways of unrighteousness. Says not only the ways, but man, his own thoughts. So what Father Yahweh said, we need to forsake our own thoughts. We need to forsake our own ways. That's what we need to do. And return back to Father Yahweh. For here's the reason. Look what Father Yahweh says. Return to Father Yahweh, and he will have mercy upon him. Return to our Father, for he will abundantly pardon. This is Father Yahweh unmerited favor that he gives us when we return. There is no grace, because if one do not return back to Father Yahweh, then his sins cannot be pardoned. So the lie that we are under grace, and grace in an understanding that we don't have to return. We don't have to return back to Father Yahweh. We don't have to forsake our ways. We don't have to forsake our thoughts, because we are under grace. But that's not what this says. He says, you return. Let the wicked forsake his own way, and the unrighteous man his own thoughts. Let him return to Father Yahweh, and he will have mercy upon him. Return to our Father, for he will abundantly pardon. So there has to be a returning. There has to be a forsaking my own ways, my own thoughts. I must seek him while he may be found. But I have to seek him with my whole heart. Not part of it. The other part is still seeking the things of this world. They can't go together. In other words, how does night and day dwell in the same place? How does righteousness and sin dwell in the same place? it don't happen. It can't happen. We might put ourselves there, but it don't mean that we are in fellowship or we having the right standing with Father Yahweh, because Father Yahweh tells us we have to forsake our own ways. We have to forsake our own thoughts. So we have to, one thing I learned, that when Shaul says, I buffet my body daily. Well, what was he talking about, buffing his body? He was buffeting his mind. His mind had to be buffeted, that it was stayed on Father Yahweh all day long. I got the understanding of worship. As the 24 elders sit around the throne, worshiping Father Yahweh day and night. Their minds has been buffeted, where they are programmed in their minds to worship Father Yahweh and Father Yahweh only. And so when Shaul says, I have to buffet my body daily, he wasn't, as a boxer, he says, as a boxer do, he was not talking about, oh, well, he had to buffet it, he had to go out there and lift, pump iron and all of this. He wasn't talking about that. It was the mind that he had to daily, he had to buffet to make sure it stayed under the subjection of the word of Father Yahweh. Because this is what Father Yahweh says. And then he says, for my thoughts are not your thoughts. For my thoughts are not your thoughts. Neither are your ways my ways, says Father Yahweh. So what is that my daily buffeting? Because see, my thoughts I have to forsake. My ways I have to forsake. This is where the spirit of selfishness rules in us when we do not forsake our own ways or our own thoughts. And so Shaul buffeted his body daily to do what? To make sure his thoughts was on Father Yahweh through Yahshua, the anointed one of Nazareth. He had to buffet his body, that not only his thoughts, but his ways. He had to come to the understanding what true worship is. True worshiping is understanding that Father Yahweh is the most important one in my life. Because why? If that's not the way, then guess what? I have not forsaken my way. I have not forsaken my thoughts. I still have my thoughts. I still have my ways. Whatever passed down through our earthly parents. That's what they weighed. They sought their ways and their thoughts above Father Yahweh's ways. Father Yahweh said, do not eat of the tree of righteousness and evil. They said, no, we're going to eat of the tree of righteousness and evil. So what happened? They did not forsake their way or their thoughts, but they allowed their thoughts and their ways to rule them. And so Father Yahweh says, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, says Father Yahweh. Now, I have to come to that point, not just knowing this. I have to come to that point, accepting this. I have to accept it. I just can't just know it. Because if I just know it, I don't know the meaning of it. I just know what it says. But when I come to the understanding of knowing, then that means I accept that my ways and my thoughts are not his thoughts and not his ways. They are my own selfish and personal thoughts. My own ways. That's when here becomes a God. I become a God. I'll have rulership over my own life. I'm not going to give in. I'm going to take the position. That is the position right here that Father Yahweh said, the God position, is that my thoughts and my ways are higher than his ways and his thoughts. That's when I become a God. And so what the Father Yahweh says, for as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways. Now you got to be humble. You have to be humble to accept that his ways are higher than your ways. You got to accept that. We live in a generation where this is not the norm. This is not the norm. This is what we can't accept. We can't accept that Father Yahweh way is higher than our way. We think and we believe, because this was passed down as an inheritance from Hashatan, that our ways are higher than his. That's why we don't go his way. That's why we chose the way of Cain. He said to Cain, Cain, if you would do righteous, I will accept you. But Cain says, no, I'm not going to do righteous. My way is higher than your way. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go and kill my brother. Because it's my way, not your way. I don't want to accept you that way. I don't want you to accept me this way, that I'm in righteousness. I want to do evil, and I still want you to accept me. My ways, I want you to accept my ways. This is where we err from the way. We want Father Yahweh to accept our way. We want Father Yahweh to accept our thoughts. That's not how it works in the kingdom of Father Yahweh. It works over there in religion, Christianity, whatever religion is. It can work that over there. You think it works. You deceive yourself thinking it works. But see, you got to understand, you got one that says, no, your thoughts are not mine. Your ways are not mine. Your ways are lower. Matter of fact, you need to forsake your ways. You need to forsake your thoughts. In other words, you need to acknowledge me, not lean to your own understanding. This is what he's saying about here. You lean into your own understanding when you have your own ways and you have your own thoughts. And these are not the thoughts of Father Yahweh. These are not the ways of Father Yahweh. Your ways are not beautiful. The garment of Father Yahweh is dressed in beauty. His ways are beauty. His thoughts are beautiful. He says, I know the thoughts and the plans that I have for you. It's not to harm you, not to destroy you, but to give you a tough future, a righteous future. So we understand that that's not the way that we wants to do it. And it's all about love. It's all about love. Everything that Father Yahweh telling us, come and eat of this bread that pertains to the bread of life. No, I'm going to sell it for the bread that I can go to my local supermarket and eat. That's the bread. Well, the scripture says our forefathers ate manna when they was in the wilderness, and they all died. So it could not be the same bread that's going to keep us alive that they ate. That manna in the local supermarket is not the bread that brings life. It just keeps the body moving. But Father Yahweh says, no, it don't even do that. Because if you don't have the nourishment of the word of Father Yahweh, the living word, not just the word, but the living word, living in you. Father Yahweh brought me to the understanding about this new and living way. You got to have the new and living way. And that is the word, his thoughts. This is the new and living way. His thoughts, his ways. That's the new and living way. Not my own thoughts, not my own ways. That's not the living way. My ways are not living. My ways bring death. My thoughts about me, it brings death. But the thoughts about what Father Yahweh has for me, about me, it brings life, everlasting life. So I'm going to trade. I desire to trade my ways and my thoughts because his thoughts and his ways are higher than mine. So I want to rid of myself of all of my ways. Well, you know the old saying, well, you know, if it ain't your way, it ain't no way. No, no, that is a lie from the pits of hell because there's nobody way is the way. It's only Father Yahweh way is the way. Because if it ain't my way, then it's going to be your way. And we done left, both of us done left Father Yahweh way out. We don't have his way. We got our own way. That's why Father Yahweh said we must die. We must die to self. We cannot come in this way having self as and being before Father Yahweh as a God. I got my own way. Yeah, well, I'm gonna read your word, but you know what? I'm gonna delay it. I'm gonna do it at a later time. I'm not gonna do it now. So guess what? It's my way. That's the way I'm gonna do it. Well, I'll tell you, your way is not gonna get you nothing but the lake of fire. That's all it's gonna get. The lake of fire. It will not bring you everlasting life. It's only Father Yahweh way and his thoughts will bring you everlasting life. Look what he says. He said, for as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. For as the rain comes down like the snow from the sky, and does not return there until it has watered the earth, to make it bring forth and bud. Father Yahweh way. He has his way to bring life to the earth. He has his way to bring life to us. Let us not deceive ourselves. It's nothing that we can do physically, but keep Father Yahweh laws spiritually. That's going to bring us this life as it comes down. As he says, the rain, the snow comes down. This bread has to come down from Father Yahweh that had came out of Father Yahweh. Yahshua, the laws. And Yahshua was a prophet. So he brought Father Yahweh word. So I have to believe all the way from every prophet. Every prophet I must believe all the way unto Yahshua. I must believe. If I stop believing at John, the prophet John, Yakanan, then I done come up short. Because I don't believe the prophet. Yahshua. Yahshua brought the message, the word, the living word from Father Yahweh. The word that sustain us. The word that give us strength. The word that give us joy. The word that give us shalom. That's what he brought in this word that you don't have to buy with milk. With money. The joy you can't buy with money. The strength of Father Yahweh you can't buy with money. This bread has to come down from Father Yahweh. Look what he says. He says, and he watered the earth to make it bring forth and bud, that it might give seed to the sower and bread to the eater. May give seed to the sower that it may bring forth bread, so that we can eat. What did he say? Eat righteousness. That's what we ought to be concentrating on. Eating righteousness. Not what we can feel in our stomachs, but what we can feel in our hearts and our minds. That bread. Because that bread leads to everlasting life. We know that bread that goes in the mouth, it goes out of the body through our bowels. So that's not the bread that you want to put your trust in. So is my word. This is what he says. So is my word. The law and the prophets that goes forth from my mouth. My word will not return to me void. The living word will not return to Father Yahweh void. Not just a word. Because see, everybody that says, oh, well, we got the word, it doesn't mean that this is the living word. He's talking about the living word. He's talking about this living bread. It will not return back to him void. Why? Because it has to do what he sent it to do. He sent the living word to do what? To heal us. To heal our minds from being oppressed, from being under the subjection of deception of Hashatan, the lies. And he's going to work. The living word works. The word just don't work. I said the elder, I said, stop being a born again Christian, saying we got to get the word in us. We got to have the word in us. We got to keep the word. No, it ain't about having no word in us. We got what kind of word that we got to have in us? We got to have that living word. That new and living way. Because that's what the living word does. It gives us a new and living way that we may live, not just a word. So look what Father Yahweh says. He says that the law and the prophet, that's what's the word. That's the living word. Goes forth from my mouth. My word will not return to me void without producing effect, without producing fruit. But it will accomplish that which I please. And it will succeed in the thing for which I sent it. So when the living word that comes from Father Yahweh's mouth, it says it will not return to him void, but it will accomplish the thing that he sent it to do. And that was to heal our mind, to deliver us from darkness unto the light, delivering us from death unto life. That's what the living word does. The law and the prophets, the message, the messenger of Father Yahweh that brought the true message. Not the false prophets, not the false teachers that we have today that is out there preaching, but the word has no effect. Because why? It's not changing, because it's not the living word of Father Yahweh, the law and the prophets. So if you're not going to believe the law, that we have to keep the law, you surely is not going to believe in the prophet, because that's what the prophet came to teach. They came and taught us the laws of Father Yahweh. He says, for you will go out with joy and be led forth with shalom. The mountain and the hills will break forth before you into singing, and all the trees will clap their hands. All the trees will clap their hands. instead of the thorn will come up the fir tree, and instead of the briar will come up the myrtle tree. This will be to Yahweh, Father Yahweh, for a name, for an everlasting sign that will not be cut off. So these trees is those that are planted by the rivers of water. That's what Psalm 1 says. This is what we will be like when the man, Father Yahshua, rubbed the eye sand over his eyes, and he asked him, what did he see? And he said, I see men looking like trees. This is what we are supposed to be. We are supposed to be trees that are planted by the rivers of water, so that why? We can be nourished by the word of Father Yahweh. And so what he says in Psalms 1, he says, blessed, verse 1, blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the unrighteous, nor who stand in the path of sinners, nor who sits in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of Father Yahweh, and in his law he meditates day and night. He meditates day and night. He shall be like a tree planted by rivers of water. The water is Father Yahweh's word. We have to be planted because we meditate day and night on Father Yahweh's word. That's what we call that, what they doing, the 24 elders. That's what they do. They are planted around the throne of Father Yahweh, and they are nourished all the day long, that they may bring what? Honor to him. You are worthy to receive honor, majesty, and greatness, and power, and dominion. But it all belongs to you. They let us say honor and glory and dominion. It all belongs to you. So they worship in him. Because why? They are planted. And so when we are trees that are planted by the rivers of water, which yield its fruit, this is this living water that he says he will give, this living water in its season. River which yield its fruit in its season, and whose leaf does not wither. Whatever this man does will succeed. So when we are planted by the rivers of water, this is what we said. We will never be a dry tree. We will always be nourished by this bread and by this water that you do not have to buy with money. Money cannot make you look like a tree. Money cannot plant you by the rivers of water. It's only this new and living way through the body of Yahshua, the anointed one of Nazareth. And so Father Yahweh says, we got to come up. Our thoughts and our ways, we have to come up. Because he says, my thoughts and my ways are higher. So what do he count our ways? As nothing. Nothing. Why? Because our way leads to nothing. Death is nothing. And that's where it leads us to. We want to have our way. Ask Hashatan. Ask Adam and Eve how their ways and what it led and what it leads to. They can tell you. They can tell you now. If they were, you could speak with them, they'll tell you it leads only to death. But he told me before that's what was going to happen. I didn't listen. I did not hear with understanding. My heart is weak for my own desire. That's what's wrong with Adam's heart. He had a weak heart for his own desire. And so we have to listen to the prophet and what the prophet is saying. The prophet just told us our ways are not his ways. Our thoughts is not his thoughts. His ways are higher than ours. His thoughts are higher than ours. So we must do what? Abolish. Not the laws and the prophet, but we are to abolish our own ways. That's what he sent Yahshua to do. That's what that word come to do. To cause us to abolish our own ways. And that we may take on his beautiful ways. And may Father Yahweh bring forth the blessings of understanding. Man say, y'all say get wisdom, but in all, get understanding. Because wisdom without no understanding has no effect. Many have wisdom, but they have no understanding with it. What that means? Everybody knows, but don't everybody do. Because when you have understanding, you do what you know. May Father Yahweh bless his word, and his word would not return to him void, but it will accomplish what he sent it to do. May Father Yahweh bless you all that will hear this message, and give Father Yahweh the honor and all the praise. And we say hallelujah, hallelujah, and we say so be it. All right, shalom, shalom.